Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. I'm getting pretty excited because my first tournament of the year is not too far away. The first week of February on Lake Okeechobee. So it's going to be a grass fishing tournament. One of my favorite lakes in the country. You know, when you grow up in the upper Midwest fishing, places like the Fox Channel Lakes in northern Illinois, any of the lakes basically throughout Wisconsin and Minnesota, you fish grass. Like you just seriously comfortable fishing grass. And you learn to break down these giant grass mats and figure out what are the productive locations. So I think I take it for granted that a lot of people don't have the same amount of grass that we have throughout the lake, the upper Midwest, so that when you go to a lake that has grass, you can be pretty overwhelmed by the sight of thousands of acres of grass. When you go to a place like Lake Gunnersville or any of the lakes down in Florida, it can be overwhelming for somebody that does not fish grass that often. So I've got a pretty straightforward system to break down these giant grass mats. I've got four things that I do, four things that I look for, and I assure you, if you find these, you will determine quickly whether that area has fish or not. Sometimes that's part of the battle is just figuring out where there are not fish, because if you know where there are not fish, you don't have to waste your time there. But the problem with grass is, if you've got 1,000-acre grass field, it's really hard to break that down and do it efficiently. If you just randomly fished, you could fish for days in that entire area. So it's important to be able to break down grass fast and figure out what you can do to determine where your high percentage areas are going to be. So I've got four things I want to share with you that will make you a better grass fisherman. Without a doubt, you will catch more fish if you do these four things. Before I get into them, I do want to remind you that I do have a members only YouTube channel where you have additional content that I have put out. I put out several videos a month as well as a monthly live stream. You can have the ability to have direct access to me to answer your questions. So check that out. Also, I do a bunch of lake breakdowns with fishthemoment.com. So if you're looking for a little bit of help on your local lakes, check out the lake breakdowns that I've done. All right, so let's talk about grass. In this case, grass is potentially one of the most overwhelming things that an angler can fish. It's just one of those things that is very intimidating. So, the first thing that I'll always do anytime I get into a big area with grass is I start looking for irregularities, meaning is there a point in the grass line? I'm generally always going to start with the grass line, the weed edge. And the reason for that is that's going to be a high percentage area to begin with. So I'm looking for irregularities along the grass edge. I'm looking for points, maybe an indent, maybe an area where the grass becomes a little bit more sparse, some sort of change along that grass line. Those are going to be great areas to look for. The next thing I'm going to do is look for areas that have some wind blown current on them. One thing a lot of people don't recognize is even if you're fishing a natural lake, if you have a solid weed line or weeds that come up almost to the surface, you will always have natural current that the wind is creating that blows through those grass mats. And the grass is always going to funnel it through somewhere. Generally speaking, the current doesn't go right through the grass. The grass pushes the current along its edges. So what you want to find is any area where you have that grass pushing current flow. So you're going to be looking for potentially, again, a grass point. Maybe you've got clumps of grass and you've got current being funneled between them. The points of those clumps are going to be key areas to look. Maybe you've just got a straight grass line that has a little bit of an indent or a bay in that grass line. Well, what that's going to do is create like an eddy as the current goes along the edges. So what you're really looking for is it's basically river fishing. You're looking for anything along those grass edges that are going to create current. So again, this isn't necessarily just if you're talking milfoil or hydrilla, it's pretty much any grass. If you've got a row of cattails or bulrushes, the same sort of thing happens. It could be pondweed. It could be any grass that's out there. If it's thick enough, you will have current flow that goes along it, and that's what creates high percentage areas. The next thing I'm always going to do is try to identify contour depth changes. So if you've got a giant bay that is full of grass, there's probably depth changes within that bay. And those depth changes are going to give the fish something to hold to. So even though you might have a giant mat of milfoil, if you have a drop from 4 to 8 feet and you can't visually see it when you look at it because it's just one solid mat of milfoil, that 4 to 8 foot drop is going to be a high percentage area because the fish are still going to use that break line or that drop as a feeding area. They're going to use that to push the bluegill and whatever bait they're feeding on within that milfoil into that hard edge. So it works the same. In fact, that's a high percentage area because now not only do you have topped out milfoil, you've also got a good hard bottom that has a drop off along it. So you want to identify any sort of contour depth changes. Those are going to be really good areas to look, especially when you're talking about fishing expansive areas that don't have much contour depth change. So maybe you're fishing a place that has a dredged channel through the bay. That can be a great area. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be solid grass that drops off. You just want the contour change. So maybe the grass grows right to the drop off and then it drops into deep enough water where the grass doesn't grow anymore. That's still going to be the same sort of key area. And generally speaking, a lot of time that is where your weed lines are going to be. That's going to be what stops your weed from growing. The last key to fishing grass is to try to identify any mixture of grasses. The more different types of grass that come together, generally speaking, you're going to have more fish in those areas. And the reason for that is you don't have one solid grass mat that's growing that the fish have to choose amongst within that. When you have a mixture of grasses, what happens is those grasses grow differently. Some need bigger areas to grow their plume, some are real tight. So you get a lot more holes within the grass. You get a lot of areas that the fish can swim through. You just get a lot of change. And the more area, the more cavernous that grass can be, generally speaking, the better it is. The other thing I'll point out is generally if you have a change in grasses, so maybe you've got milfoil mixed in with some cabbage and mixed in with some pondweed, they all grow in different bottom content. So when you get a mixture, generally speaking, what that means is you have some differences within the bottom content itself, which again is going to be an area that the fish like as well, because maybe you have a little bit of rock, maybe a little bit of gravel, maybe some sand, maybe some muck. And that area where all that pulls together creates an ecosystem in itself. And that's really what it comes down to. If you're looking for an area that has good fish in it on a giant flat, you need areas within that grass to create an ecosystem. So generally speaking, what that means is you need some openings underneath the grass. You need some areas for the fish to swim through, areas that the bait fish want to be in. So if you have an area that's got a bunch of different types of grass and a bunch of different types of bottom contour, you're talking about areas that are going to have an ecosystem of just fish everywhere. And that's what you're looking for. So if you use these four things, you look for irregularities, look for areas where there could be current, look for depth changes, and look for areas with multiple types of plant life, you're going to find areas that have fish. Don't waste your time trying to break down an expansive flat that has no irregularities, no bottom change. It's one single type of weed and has no depth changes. You're going to spend all day long trying to find the needle in the haystack. Don't waste your time on that. Move over to these four things that I just pointed out to you, and you will see your fish catches increase and you will break down big grass mats much more efficiently. I hope this was helpful. If it was, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and stay tuned. We'll have a new video coming out tomorrow for you.